I should have known the moment his hand closed around my wrist that my life would never be the same. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It started with coffee scalding, expensive airport coffee that I'd been clutching like a lifeline after a 17-hour shift at Seattle General. My scrubs were wrinkled, my hair was falling out of its bun, and all I wanted was to collapse into my window seat on the flight to San Francisco for my best friend's wedding. 24 hours away from blood draws and code blues. 24 hours to remember I was still human. I wasn't paying attention. That was my first mistake. I rounded the corner near Gate 47, juggling my coffee, phone, and boarding pass, when I collided with what felt like a wall of muscle and expensive fabric. The cup flew from my hand in slow motion, the lid popping off midair, sending a cascade of caramel macchiato across the front of the most immaculate charcoal suit I'd ever seen. "Oh my God," the words tumbled out as I watched the dark stain spread across his chest. "I'm so sorry I wasn't—" I looked up, and forgot how to breathe. He was tall, easily 6'3", with the kind of face that belonged on currency or carved into marble. Sharp jaw, perfectly styled dark hair with just a hint of silver at the temples, and eyes so dark they were almost black. But it wasn't his beauty that made my heart stutter. It was the way he looked at me, like he was cataloging every detail, like he was deciding something. "I'll pay for the dry cleaning," I stammered, reaching for the napkins in my bag. "Seriously, I'm so sorry. Let me—" His hand shot out and caught my wrist before I could touch him. The contact sent electricity shooting up my arm. His grip wasn't painful, but it was absolute, inescapable. His skin was warm, his fingers long and elegant, and I noticed, absurdly, that he wore a signet ring on his pinky finger, gold, with some kind of crest I couldn't make out. "It's fine." His voice was low, smooth as aged. Whiskey, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe. Accidents happen. But he didn't let go. "Sir, I really am sorry." I tugged gently, trying to free my wrist. His grip tightened a fraction. "Dante." He said it like a command, not an introduction. "What's your name?" Something in his tone made every instinct I'd honed in the ER start screaming. This wasn't normal. Men didn't react like this to spilled coffee. They cursed. They demanded compensation. They made a scene. They didn't look at you like you'd just become the most interesting problem they'd encountered all year. "Lena." I don't know why I told him the truth. "Listen, I have a flight to catch. To San Francisco." It wasn't a question. My blood went cold. "How did you—" "Your boarding pass." He gestured to where it had fallen during our collision, face up on the polished airport floor. "Flight 237 to SFO, Gate 47, boarding in 15 minutes. My name printed clearly at the top, Lena Morgan." Relief and embarrassment flooded through me. Of course. Not psychic. Just observant. "Right." I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Well, Dante, again, I'm really sorry about your suit. If you give me your information, I can— You're a nurse." Another statement, his eyes dropping to the ID badge still clipped to my bag. "Seattle General Hospital Trauma Unit. Late shift? I don't think that's— You look exhausted." Something flickered in those dark eyes. Not quite concern. More like assessment. "When did you last sleep?" The question was so unexpected, so oddly intimate, that I answered automatically. "Yesterday morning. But I'm fine. I'm used to it. No one should be used to running on empty." His thumb brushed the inside of my wrist, whether intentionally or not. I couldn't tell, and I felt my pulse jump beneath his fingers. Could he feel it too? The slight curve of his mouth suggested he could. "You should take better care of yourself, Lena." The way he said my name sent a shiver down my spine, like he was tasting it, claiming it. I yanked my hand back, and this time he let me go. "I need to board my flight." I bent to grab my boarding pass, very aware of how close he still stood. When I straightened, there were two men flanking him that I hadn't noticed before, both wearing dark suits, both built like linebackers, both watching me with the kind of focused attention that made my mouth go dry. Bodyguards. He had bodyguards. "Who are you?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Dante smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. "Someone you should stay away from." Then he reached into his jacket. I flinched, and his smile widened and pulled out a business card. Thick, expensive cardstock with nothing but a phone number embossed in gold. "But something tells me you won't." He pressed the card into my hand, his fingers lingering against mine. "When you're ready to stop running, call me." "I'm not running from anything." Everyone's running from something. Lena. He leaned in close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar, and smoke and something darker. The question is whether you're running toward something worse. Final boarding call for Flight 237 to San Francisco, the intercom announced. I needed to move, to walk away, to forget this strange, unsettling encounter with a man who looked at me like he could see straight through to my bones. Instead, I stood frozen as Dante stepped back, his eyes never leaving mine. Enjoy San Francisco, he said softly. I'll be seeing you soon. It sounded like a promise, or a threat. I made it to my gate with 2 minutes to spare, my heart hammering against my ribs. As I handed over my boarding pass, I glanced back. Dante stood in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by his men, watching me. Even from this distance, I could feel the weight of his gaze. I should have thrown away his card. Instead, I slipped it into my pocket. That was my second mistake. I couldn't stop thinking about him. 3 days in, San Francisco, and Dante Salvatore. I'd Googled the name on his card during a moment of weakness, haunted me like a fever dream. The search results had been disturbing. Vague mentions in business articles. A blurred photo at a charity gala. Rumors on Reddit threads that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. Import-export, the legitimate sources claimed. But the whispers spoke of something else entirely. Something dangerous. I should have deleted his number. Should have convinced myself our encounter was nothing more than an awkward moment with an eccentric businessman who took his coffee stains too seriously. But I kept the card. And worse, I kept catching myself staring at it. Earth to Lena. My best friend Jessa waved a hand in front of my face, her wedding veil tilting precariously. You've checked your phone like 6 times in the last 10 minutes. Is the hospital calling you back? No, sorry. I tucked my phone away and forced a smile, adjusting the strap of my bridesmaid dress. Just distracted. You know me. I do know you, which is why I'm worried. Jessa caught my hand, her expression softening. You've seemed off since you got here. Are you sure you're okay? I wanted to tell her. Wanted to describe the man at the airport who'd looked at me like I was something precious and terrifying all at once. But how could I explain what I didn't understand myself? I'm fine. I lied. Just tired. Now let's get you married before Marcus thinks you've changed your mind. The ceremony was beautiful, fairy lights strung through the garden of the boutique hotel, roses everywhere, Jessa radiant in ivory lace. I should have been present, should have been soaking in every moment of my best friend's happiness. Instead, I felt watched. It started during the vows. A prickling at the back of my neck, that primal instinct that tells you predator eyes are tracking your every movement. I glanced around the intimate gathering of 50 guests, searching for the source of my unease. Nothing. Just smiling faces and happy tears. I told myself I was being paranoid. That 36 straight hours of work before flying out had finally broken something in my brain. But during the reception, I felt it again. I was standing by the bar, nursing a glass of champagne I didn't really want, when I saw him, not Dante, one of his men, the shorter one with the scar through his eyebrow who'd been standing to Dante's left at the airport. He was across the garden, half hidden by a trellis covered in climbing jasmine, speaking into his phone. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't possible. This was a private wedding at a small hotel in Napa Valley. There was no way. He looked up. Our eyes met, and he smiled. I set down my glass with shaking hands and walked quickly toward the hotel, my heels clicking against the stone pathway. I needed to think, needed to figure out if I was losing my mind or if I was actually being followed by a man I'd spilled coffee on 3 days ago. The hotel lobby was mercifully empty. I pulled out my phone, Dante's card already in my other hand when had I taken it from my clutch, and stared at the gold-embossed number. This was insane. I should call hotel security, the police, anyone but him. I dialed. He answered on the first ring. Lena. Not a question. Like he'd been waiting for my call. Like he knew it was inevitable. Why are you having me followed? My voice was steadier than I felt. A pause. Then, are you somewhere private? Answer my question. I will, but not over the phone. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. Where are you? You seem to already know that. Lena. He said my name like a warning. I need you to listen very carefully. Go to your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except Marco, the man you saw in the garden. He'll be there in 3 minutes. You're insane if you think someone else is watching you tonight. The words hit me like a physical blow. Someone who isn't mine. And they're not interested in keeping you safe. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? 3 minutes, Lena. Room 312. Marco will explain everything. A pause. I'm sorry it has to be this way. The line went dead. I stood frozen in the lobby, every instinct screaming at me to run. But where? Back to the wedding where I'd put Jessa and everyone else at risk? To my room where Marco, a man I didn't know, working for a man I understood even less, was apparently heading? A couple entered the lobby, laughing, wrapped up in each other. Normal. Safe. Everything my life had apparently stopped being the moment I'd collided with Dante Salvatore. I made it to my room in 2 minutes. Locked the door. Fastened the chain. Then stood in the middle of the tastefully decorated space, my breath coming too fast, my mind racing through possibilities that all ended badly. The knock came exactly 60 seconds later. 3 sharp raps. Miss Morgan. My name is Marco Rossi. Mr. Salvatore sent me. I approached the door but didn't open it. How do I know you're really you spilled caramel macchiato on his Brioni suit at SeaTac Airport 3 days ago? You're wearing a dusty rose bridesmaid dress. Your friend Jessa is getting married in the garden, and you've checked your phone 43 times since the ceremony started. 43 times. He'd been watching me that closely. I opened the door. Marco looked exactly as I remembered, compact, muscular, professional, but up close, I could see the scar wasn't his only one. This was a man who'd seen violence, who'd probably dealt it. Mr. Salvatore wants you to know you're safe, he said, his accent thicker than Dante's. But we need to move you. Now. I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me what the hell is going on. There's a photographer at the wedding who isn't a photographer. Marco's eyes were steady, serious. He's been taking pictures of you specifically. He works for the Constantine family. The name meant nothing to me. So they're the kind of people who don't take pictures unless they're planning to use them as leverage. He glanced down the hallway, tense. Mr. Salvatore believes they've identified you as someone connected to him. But I'm not connected to him. I met him once for 30 seconds. That's 30 seconds more than most people get. Marco's expression was almost sympathetic. And in our world, Miss Morgan, that's enough. Our world. As if I'd somehow become part of it without ever agreeing to the terms. I'm calling the police. The police can't help you with this. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. But Dante can. He's already on his way. His plane lands in 40 minutes. Until then, I'm here to make sure nothing happens to you. Why does he even care? Something flickered in Marco's eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or pity. That's a question you'll have to ask him yourself. Downstairs, music drifted up from the reception. Laughter, dancing. My best friend celebrating the best night of her life while I stood in a hotel room with a stranger, being told I was in danger from people I'd never heard of because of a man I didn't know. I looked down at my phone, still clutched in my hand, at Dante's number glowing on the screen from my recent calls. What happens if I refuse to go with you? Marco's expression went flat. Then I stay here and hope I'm enough to keep you alive until Dante arrives. But Miss Morgan? He met my eyes. I wouldn't bet your life on it. Dante arrived like a storm. I heard him before I saw him, the sharp click of expensive shoes on hardwood, the low murmur of voices in Italian, the kind of commanding presence that changed the air pressure in a room. Marco had positioned himself by the window for the past 30 minutes, watching, waiting. When his phone buzzed, he straightened immediately. He's here. My heart kicked against my ribs. I'd changed out of my bridesmaid dress into jeans and a sweater, feeling ridiculous, and terrified in equal measure. I'd texted Jessa some excuse about a migraine, hating myself for lying on her wedding night. But what was I supposed to say? Sorry, can't stay for cake apparently. I'm being stalked by the Russian mob because I spilled coffee on a man who might be a criminal himself. The door opened without a knock. Dante Salvatore filled the doorway, and I understood in that moment why Marco had looked so calm. This was a man who commanded loyalty not through fear alone, but through sheer gravitational pull. He wore all black slacks, dress shirt, leather jacket, and looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread for dangerous men with dangerous money. His eyes found mine immediately. Held them. Lena. My name was relief and accusation all at once. You're all right. I'm confused and angry and possibly in shock, but sure, all right works. I crossed my arms, trying to hide how badly my hands were shaking. Want to tell me why my best friend's wedding just turned into a crime thriller? Marco, give us the room. Dante's voice was soft, but Marco moved instantly, slipping out and closing the door behind him. We were alone. The silence stretched between us, heavy with things unsaid. 3 days ago, you told me to stay away from you, I said finally. That seems like it would have been good advice. The best advice you'll ever ignore. He moved further into the room, and I was struck again by how he moved graceful, controlled, like a predator who never forgot what he was. I didn't intend for any of this to happen. What exactly is this? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've dragged me into something that I want no part of. I know. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could see the tension in his jaw, the shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept. And I'm sorry, but we're past the point of good intentions. Try explaining anyway. Dante was quiet for a moment, his gaze drifting to the window where the wedding reception continued below. When he looked back at me, something in his expression had shifted, become more honest, more raw. My family has enemies. The Constantins are one of them. They've been looking for leverage against me for months, anyone close to me, anyone they could use to apply pressure. He paused. 3 days ago, you touched me in a public place. You spoke to me. I gave you my card. To most people, that's nothing. But to them, it's a connection, a weakness they can exploit. So you're saying this is my fault? Anger flared hot in my chest. I accidentally bumped into you. No. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, and suddenly he was right there, so close I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. This is my fault. I should have walked away, should have let my men handle the situation and never spoken to you, but I didn't. Why not? The question hung in the air. Dante's hand lifted, hesitated, then touched my cheek with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. His palm was warm, slightly rough, and I should have pulled away, should have slapped his hand and demanded he get away from me. I didn't move, because the moment I saw you, he said quietly, I knew you were going to ruin me. My breath caught. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. His thumb traced my cheekbone, his eyes searching mine like he was memorizing every detail. I've spent 15 years building walls, Lena, being untouchable, and then you crashed into me with your coffee and your tired eyes and your complete lack of fear, and He stopped, jaw tightening. I made a mistake. I let myself want something I couldn't have. I'm not a thing to be had. No. His smile was sad, almost self-mocking. You're the thing that's going to get me killed, or get you killed. I haven't decided which is worse. I should have been terrified. Should have been running for the door, screaming for help, anything but standing here, letting this dangerous stranger touch me like I was something precious. But all I could think about was the way he'd said my name on the phone. The fact that he'd flown here, how far? Where had he even come from? Because I was in danger. Danger he'd created? Yes, but danger he was trying to fix. What do the Constantins want? I-5. Right now? To take pictures. To establish that you exist, that you matter to me. Soon? His hand dropped from my face, and I felt the loss of his touch like cold water. They'll try to take you. Use you to force my hand in a territorial dispute that's been brewing for 6 months. Territorial dispute? I repeated. You mean like drug routes? Money laundering? I'm not an idiot, Dante. I know what you are. Do you? He tilted his head, studying me. Tell me what you think you know. You're mafia, or something close enough that the distinction doesn't matter. You have money and power and men with guns who do what you tell them. You're probably responsible for things that would make me sick if I knew the details. I lifted my chin. And 3 days ago you decided I was interesting enough to ruin my life over. Accurate. Except for one thing. He stepped back, creating distance. And I hated that I noticed. I didn't decide you were interesting. You decided to call me. Because your man was at the wedding, you could have called the police, hotel security, anyone. His eyes were intense, unrelenting. But you called me. Why? The question hit too close to home. Because I'd wanted to. Because some broken part of me had felt safe with his voice on the line, even while another part screamed that he was the danger. Because when he'd said my name, something in my chest had responded like it recognized him. I don't know, I whispered. Liar. But he said it gently, almost affectionately. You know exactly why. You're just not ready to admit it yet. A knock at the door, Marco's voice, urgent. Boss, we need to move. Black sedan just pulled up. 2 men heading inside. Dante's entire demeanor changed in a heartbeat. The softness vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Back exit? Already secured. Cars ready. He turned to me, and the man who'd touched my face with tenderness was gone. This was the man who commanded fear, who built empires in shadows. I need you to trust me, Lena. Just for tonight. He extended his hand. Come with me, and I promise you'll be safe. Stay here, and I can't make that promise. Where are we going? Somewhere the Constantines can't reach you. Somewhere I can protect you until I fix this. His hand remained steady, waiting. Please. I'd never heard him say please before. Somehow, that single word was more terrifying than everything else combined. Below, I heard raised voices. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, strong and sure, and he pulled me toward the door where Marco waited. Stay close to me, Dante murmured, his body shifting to shield mine. And Lena? Yeah? Don't let go. The gunshot changed everything. 1 second I was following Dante down the narrow service stairs, my hand locked in his, adrenaline making my thoughts sharp and jagged. The next, the world exploded into chaos. Down! Dante's arm wrapped around my waist, and he threw us both against the wall as another shot rang out, closer this time. Plaster rained down from where the bullet struck above our heads. Marco was already moving, his gun drawn when had he pulled a gun, returning fire up the stairwell. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, making my ears ring. Go, go! Marco shouted. I'll hold them! Dante didn't hesitate. He half dragged, half carried me down the remaining stairs, his body curved around mine like a shield. We burst through the exit door into the cool California night, and I saw 3 black SUVs idling in the alley, their engines running. More of Dante's men, at least 6 that I could see, all armed, all watching, the building with lethal focus. Get her in the car. Dante's voice was clipped, commanding. Nico, take point. Alessandro, stay with Marco. No one gets past this door. Boss, you should. One of the men started. I gave you an order. They moved instantly. I was shepherded toward the middle SUV, hands guiding me but never rough, always careful, professional. Like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Dante slid in beside me, and the door hadn't even closed before the driver hit the gas. We peeled out of the alley, tires screaming, just as I heard more gunshots behind us. Marco, I started. We'll be fine. Dante's hand found mine in the darkness, squeezed once. He's the best I have. My whole body was shaking. I couldn't seem to stop it. There were people in that hotel. Jess's wedding. They won't hurt civilians. It's bad for business. His voice was matter of fact, but I heard the tension underneath. They wanted you. Only you. This is insane. I laughed, but it came out broken. 2 hours ago I was drinking champagne and watching my best friend dance with her husband. Now I'm in a car chase with the mafia. Not a chase. We lost them 3 turns ago. Dante leaned forward, speaking to the driver in rapid Italian. The man nodded, adjusted course. We're going to my property north of the city. It's secure. Your property. I pulled my hand from his, needing the distance, needing to think. How many properties do you have? Enough. He studied me in the dim light from passing street lamps. You're in shock. You think? My voice cracked. People were shooting at us, Dante. Shooting. At a wedding. I know. Something in his expression softened. I know. And I'm sorry. This shouldn't have happened. I should have. He stopped, jaw clenching. I should have stayed away from you. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He reached for me again, more hesitant this time, and when I didn't pull away, he drew me closer. Come here. I should have resisted. Should have maintained the distance, the anger, the fear. But my body was still trembling, my mind still reeling, and when Dante pulled me against his chest, I let him. His arms came around me, solid and warm, one hand cradling the back of my head. Breathe, he murmured into my hair. Just breathe. You're safe now. Safe. The word tasted like a lie. I'll never be safe again, will I? Not after tonight. His silence was answer enough. We drove for what felt like hours, but was probably only 40 minutes. The city lights gave way to darkness, then to the sprawling hills of wine country. Finally, we turned onto a private road, passing through gates that opened automatically, climbing higher until we reached a house that looked more like a fortress, stone and glass and steel, perched on a hillside with views that would be breathtaking in daylight. Floodlights illuminated the property, and I counted at least 8 more men patrolling the grounds. "How many people work for you?" I asked as Dante helped me from the SUV. "Enough to keep you safe." He kept his hand on the small of my back, guiding me toward the entrance. "Come, you need rest." Inside was all dark wood and leather furniture, expensive and masculine and surprisingly tasteful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the valley below, though right now they only reflected our images back at us, me looking shell-shocked and rumpled, Dante looking like he'd stepped out of a photo shoot for powerful men with dark secrets. "The guest suite is upstairs," he said. "First door on the right. There's a bathroom, clothes that should fit you. How do you have clothes that fit me?" The question came out sharper than I intended. His mouth quirked. "I had someone purchase them this afternoon. Your size was in the hotel registry." Of course it was, because he'd planned for this. Had known somehow that I'd end up here. "You're terrifying," I said quietly. "Yes." He didn't deny it. "But I'm terrifying in your direction now, Lena. That has to count for something." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I'd somehow managed to grab it before we fled. Multiple texts from Jessa, increasingly frantic. "Where are you? Are you okay? Lena, please answer me. I need to tell her something," I said, staring at the screen. "She's worried. Tell her you're safe. That you had to leave, but you'll explain later." Dante moved closer, reading over my shoulder. "Don't tell her where you are. Don't give details. The less she knows, the safer she is. This is my life now?" I looked up at him. "Lying to everyone I care about? Hiding in your fortress while men with guns walk circles around the property? For now." His hand came up, thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "Until I end this." "How?" "By making it very clear that you're under my protection. That touching you means war." His eyes were dark, intense. "The Constantins think they can use you as leverage. I'm going to show them that was the last mistake they'll ever make." The violence in his voice should have terrified me, should have sent me running for the door, screaming. Instead, I felt something else. Something that made my pulse quicken and my skin flush. Safety. For the first time since the shooting started, I felt genuinely safe. And that was more frightening than anything else. What if I want to leave? I had to ask. Had to know. What if tomorrow I wake up and decide this is too much? That I want to go back to my normal life? Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or resignation. "Then I'll let you go." He said it like a vow. "I'll station men to watch over you from a distance, make sure the Constantins know you're still protected, and I'll let you walk away. I won't hold you here against your will, Lena. You're not a prisoner." "Then what am I?" He leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath against my lips, close enough that I could see the exact moment. His control started to slip. "You're the first thing I've wanted for myself in 15 years, he whispered. "And the only thing I can't let myself have." Then he stepped back, creating distance, his mask sliding back into place. "Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning when you've had time to process." He turned toward the door. "If you need anything, press the button by the bed. Someone will come immediately." "Dante." He paused, looked back. "Why me?" The question I'd been holding finally escaped. Out of everyone in that airport, everyone you could have. Why me? For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "Because you looked at me like I was human." The door closed behind him, and I was alone in a house full of dangerous men, miles from everything I knew. I should have been planning my escape. Instead, I touched my lips where his breath had been, and wondered what it would feel like if he'd closed that last inch of distance. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes I heard gunshots. Felt Dante's arms pulling me down, his body covering mine. Saw the cold efficiency in his men's eyes as they returned fire like it was just another Tuesday night. By the time dawn broke over the valley, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, I'd worn a path in the plush carpet of the guest suite. The clothes Dante had mentioned were in the closet designer labels, all in my size, from jeans to dresses to silk pajamas. I couldn't bring myself to put on. Someone had studied me, measured me with their eyes, known exactly what would fit. The thought made my skin crawl, and something else I didn't want to examine. I showered in the massive marble bathroom, trying to wash away the surreal horror of the previous night. It didn't work. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were too wide, my face too pale. I looked haunted. I looked like someone who belonged in Dante's world. A soft knock at the door made me jump. "Miss Morgan?" A woman's voice, accented but gentle. "May I come in?" I wrapped myself tighter in the towel. "Who are you?" "My name is Sophia. Mr. Salvatore asked me to check on you. I've brought breakfast." I opened the door to find a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and gray-streaked dark hair, carrying a tray laden with coffee, pastries, and fresh fruit. She didn't look like she belonged in a criminal's fortress. She looked like someone's grandmother. "I'm not hungry," I said automatically. "You will be." She moved past me with practiced efficiency, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "Mr. Salvatore said you didn't eat last night. You need your strength." "Is that what he said?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "And I'm sure Mr. Salvatore always gets what he wants." Sophia's expression softened with something like sympathy. "Not always, dear. Not with the things that matter most." She poured coffee into a delicate china cup. "He's been awake all night, you know, making calls. Making sure you're protected." "Making sure his investment is protected, you mean?" "No." Her voice was firm. "Making sure you are protected. There's a difference." She gestured to the chair. "Please, sit, talk with an old woman for a moment." I didn't want to. Didn't want to humanize this place, these people, this impossible situation. But Sophia's eyes were warm, and I was so desperately alone, and before I knew it, I was sitting down, accepting the coffee she offered. "How long have you worked for him?" I asked. 20 years. Since he was barely more than a boy." She settled into the opposite chair. "I knew his mother. God rest her soul." "What was he like? Before all this?" Sophia was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her own coffee cup. "Angry, brilliant, trying so hard to survive in a world that wanted to break him." She met my eyes. "He's still that boy, in some ways, still trying to protect the few things he allows himself to care about. I barely know him, and yet, here you are." It wasn't accusation, just observation. "He doesn't bring people here, Miss Morgan. This house is his sanctuary, his fortress. In 15 years, you're the first person he's brought through these doors who isn't family or business." The weight of that statement settled over me like a blanket. "I don't understand why. Don't you?" Sophia smiled softly. "You're an intelligent woman. I think you understand perfectly. You're just afraid of what it means." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Multiple notifications flooding in now that we were out of the dead zone of the drive. Messages from Jessa. 3 missed calls from Seattle General asking about my shift coverage. Emails about bills and appointments and all the mundane details of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else now. And 1 text from an unknown number. "We know where you are. Tell Salvatore the girl isn't worth a war." The blood drained from my face. Sophia saw it, was at my side immediately. "What is it?" I showed her the screen with shaking hands. She read it, her expression hardening into something that reminded me she worked for a dangerous man. Because she was dangerous too. "I'll get Dante." She was already moving toward the door. No, but she was gone. He appeared less than a minute later, and I realized he must have been close. Must have been waiting. He was dressed differently than last night, dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked tired and lethal and somehow more human than I'd seen him yet. His eyes went straight to my phone, still clutched in my hand. "Show me." I handed it over silently, watched his jaw clench as he read the message, something dark and violent flickering across his face. "How did they get this number?" I asked. "I just changed. It's 6 months ago. It's not public. They have resources." He was already typing something on his own phone. "Marco, I need a trace on this number. Now." A pause. "I don't care if it's scrambled. Find out where it originated and who made the purchase." He hung up, focused back on me. "They're trying to scare you. It's working. I know." He moved closer, and I saw the exhaustion in the lines around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "But they made a mistake." What mistake? They showed their hand too early. This message tells me they don't have eyes on the property they're guessing based on logic. And the fact that they're trying to negotiate means they're not as confident as they want us to believe. His hand came up, hesitated, then settled on my shoulder. The touch was warm, grounding. They're afraid of me, Lena, as they should be. What did you do last night? I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but I had to ask. After you left me. His eyes held mine, and he didn't look away. Didn't soften the truth. I reminded them why people don't take things that belong to me. I don't belong to you. No. His thumb traced small circles on my shoulder. The gesture intimate and possessive. But they don't know that. And as long as they believe you do, as long as they believe I'll burn their entire organization to the ground for touching you. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. Then you're safe. So let them believe it, Lena. Let them think you're mine. And what do you believe? The question hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to face. Dante's hand slid from my shoulder to my neck, his fingers spanning my throat, not threatening, but claiming, marking territory. His thumb rested against my pulse point, and I knew he could feel how my heart raced. I believe, he said quietly, that I've made a lot of calculated decisions in my life. Strategic moves, smart plays. His eyes searched mine. And then I met you. And for the first time in 15 years, I did something phenomenally stupid. What? I let myself hope. The words hit me like a physical blow. There was something raw in his voice. Something vulnerable that he was letting me see. This was the boy Sophia had mentioned. The one who'd fought to survive. The one who'd built walls so high nothing could reach him. Until now. Dante, I started, but I didn't know how to finish. Didn't know what I was asking for or offering or even feeling beyond the confusion and fear and the dangerous, undeniable pull toward this man who should terrify me. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He checked the screen, something shifting in his expression. I need to take this. Stay here. Don't leave the house. He started toward the door, then paused. And Lena, delete that message. Block the number. Don't engage with them in any way. What if they send more? He looked back at me, and the man I saw was the one who commanded empires. The one who made people disappear. The one who'd apparently set fires in my name. They won't. By tonight, the person who sent it won't have hands to send anything else. He left, and I was alone again with my cold coffee and racing thoughts. I looked down at my phone, at the message that had turned my stomach to ice, at the life I'd had just 4 days ago that seemed impossible to reach now. I should have called the police, the FBI, someone. Instead, I deleted the message like Dante had told me to, and hated myself a little for how easily I obeyed. I spent the morning watching Dante's fortress come alive. From my window, I could see everything. Men arriving in expensive cars, conversations in the courtyard, hands gesturing sharply, voices carrying on the wind, though I couldn't make out the words. The energy shifted, became tighter, more focused, more dangerous. Sophia brought lunch soup and bread I couldn't eat and tried to make small talk, but her eyes kept drifting to the window, to whatever was happening below, and I knew. This was it. The war Dante had promised. Because of me. By afternoon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I pulled on jeans and a simple black sweater from the closet, trying not to think about how perfectly they fit, and left the suite. No one stopped me as I descended the stairs. The guards I passed nodded respectfully but said nothing, like they'd been told to let me move freely, or like they'd been told I was already one of them. I found Dante in what looked like a study, all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books in Italian and English, a massive desk covered in papers and laptops. But it was the people in the room that made me stop in the doorway. 6 men, all dressed like Dante, all carrying themselves with the same lethal grace, and 1 woman, stunning in a way that made my chest tighten with something that felt uncomfortably like jealousy. Dark hair, dark eyes, a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. They all turned when I entered. The conversations died. Dante looked up from whatever document he'd been reviewing, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, concern, and something else that made my skin heat. Lena. He stood immediately. You should be resting. I've been resting all morning while you plan whatever this is. I gestured to the room. I deserve to know what's happening. One of the men, older, with silver hair and sharp eyes, smiled slightly. She has spirit. I like her. This is a private meeting. the woman said, her accent placing her somewhere in Eastern Europe. Perhaps the civilian should. Lena stays. Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. If we're discussing her safety, she has a right to be here. The woman's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more. Dante moved around the desk, coming to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the tension radiating from his body. These are my captains, my family. He gestured to each in turn. Antonio, my second, Luca, and Giovanni, my cousins. Thomas, who handles our international operations. Yuri, who manages our eastern territories. And Katerina, who oversees intelligence. Intelligence. Right. That's why she looked at me like she was cataloging my weaknesses. They're here because the Constantines escalated last night, Dante continued. They attacked you in a public place, at a civilian event. That breaks every rule we operate under. There are rules? I couldn't help the bitter laugh. You people have rules about when and where to shoot at each other. More than you'd think, Antonio said. His voice was gravelly, worn, and the Constantines just broke the most important one. They brought civilians into it. It means we respond with everything we have, Dante finished. His hand found the small of my back, a gesture that was becoming familiar. Grounding. It means we make an example. An example. I turned to face him fully. What does that mean exactly? More burning buildings? More violence? It means, Katerina said coolly, that by tomorrow morning, the Constantine family will understand that touching you was signing their death warrant. The casual way she said it made my blood run cold. You're talking about killing people. We're talking about protecting what's ours, Giovanni corrected. He was younger than the others, maybe early 30s, with the kind of pretty face that probably got him anything he wanted. The Constantines started this. We're finishing it. I'm not yours. I looked around the room, at these powerful, dangerous people treating my life like a chess piece. I'm not anyone's. I'm just a nurse who spilled coffee on the wrong person. You stopped being just anything the moment Dante gave you his number, Yuri said. He was massive, built like a tank, and his accent was thick. In our world, that is a claim. A statement. I didn't know that. Ignorance doesn't change reality. Katerina stood, moving with feline grace toward a tablet. On the desk. The Constantines have been watching Mr. Salvatore for months, looking for weaknesses. You gave them one. She pulled up a series of photos me at the airport, at the wedding, entering the hotel. All taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. They have teams tracking your movements, Miss Morgan. They know your schedule at the hospital, where you buy coffee, which gym you no longer attend because of your hours. My stomach turned over. How long have they been watching me? Since the airport. Dante's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. They had someone there, coincidentally. Saw our interaction, and decided to investigate. By the time I realized they'd identified you, they already had a full dossier. Show her the rest, Antonio said quietly. No, Dante started. She deserves to know what she's in the middle of. Katerina swiped to another image and my breath caught. It was my apartment building in Seattle, my car in the parking lot, a photo of my mailbox with my name clearly visible. They've been to my home? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Not inside, but yes, they've surveilled the location. Katerina's expression was unreadable. They also pulled your financial records, medical history, and compiled a list of everyone you've contacted in the past 6 months. Your friend Jessa is on that list. So is your mother in Portland. The room tilted. I reached for the desk, needing something solid. My mother is fine. I have men watching her. Dante's hands were on my arms, steadying me. She's safe, Lena. I made sure of it the moment I realized the Constantines were interested in you. When? When did you realize? He looked away, jaw clenching. 2 days ago. 2 days. I pushed away from him, anger flooding through the fear. You've known for 2 days that these people were following me, investigating me, threatening my family, and you didn't tell me? I was trying to handle it quietly. To remove the threat before you. Needed to know the details. That wasn't your choice to make. No. His eyes met mine, fierce and unapologetic. But I made it anyway, because the alternative was watching you panic, watching you try to run, and then watching them take you before I could stop it. You're so certain you can stop it. Stop them. I gestured wildly at the papers, the photos, the evidence of how thoroughly I'd been violated. But you can't even stop them from taking pictures of my mother's house. Actually, Thomas interjected, his voice mild. We can. And we did. The photographer who took that image is currently in a hospital in Spokane with both hands broken. He won't be taking pictures of anyone else. The casual violence in his tone made me want to vomit. This is insane, I whispered. This whole thing is insane. Yes. Dante moved closer again, and this time I didn't back away. It is. And I'm sorry you're in the middle of it. But we're past apologies now. Past the point where I can just send you home with a couple of guards and hope for the best. His hand cupped my face, tilting it up so I had to meet his eyes. They've seen you, Lena. They know what you look like, where you live, who you love. The only way to keep you safe now is to make them more afraid of touching you than they are of anything else in this world. And how do you do that? His smile was cold, lethal. I show them what happens when someone takes something of mine. I know. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. You're not mine. You've made that very clear, but they don't know that, and as long as they believe you are, as long as they believe I'd set the world on fire to keep you safe. He leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. Then you get to keep breathing. A phone rang Antonio's. He answered, listened, then looked at Dante. It's done. All 6 targets confirmed. Good. Dante straightened, his hand dropping from my face. When he looked at his captains, he was all business. Again. Cold. Controlled. Spread the word. Anyone who looks at her wrong, anyone who even thinks about using her for leverage, ends up like the Constantins. No exceptions. No mercy. Understood, boss. They filed out one by one, until only Dante and I remained. 6 targets, I said quietly. What does that mean? It means 6 Constantin operations just went offline. 6 locations they'll have to rebuild from scratch. 6 messages that tell them exactly how far I'm willing to go. You're starting a war over me. No. He closed the distance between us, his hands framing my face, forcing me to see the truth in his eyes. I'm ending a war over you. The Constantines have been pushing boundaries for months, testing my patience. Last night they crossed a line they can't come back from. So yes, I'm responding with force. But don't mistake what this is, Lena. This isn't about pride or territory or power. Then what is it about? His forehead touched mine, and I felt him exhale shakily, like he was letting go of something he'd been holding too tightly. It's about the fact that I can't. His voice cracked slightly. I can't lose you. Not now. Not when I just found you. I didn't see Dante for the rest of the day. After his confession in the study, if that's what it was, he'd been pulled away by Antonio, their voices low and urgent as they disappeared down a hallway I hadn't explored. I'd stood there in the empty room, surrounded by evidence of my invaded privacy, trying to process what he'd said. I can't lose you. Not when I just found you. Like I was something precious, something worth burning the world for. I should have been terrified. Should have been demanding he take me home, consequences be damned. Instead, I'd spent the afternoon curled up in the study's leather chair, watching the sun sink behind the hills and wondering when I'd stopped thinking of this as a kidnapping and started thinking of it as something else entirely. Something dangerous that felt disturbingly like fate. Sophia found me there as darkness fell. You should eat, dear. You've barely touched anything all day. I'm not hungry. Your body doesn't care whether you're hungry. She set down a tray pasta this time, the smell making my stomach clench with unexpected need. Mr. Salvatore asked me to make sure you ate. He's worried about you. He has a funny way of showing it. Where is he? Sophia's expression grew troubled. Handling business, the kind I'm not privy to. She paused at the door. But I've known him a long time, Miss Morgan, and I've never seen him like this. So distracted. So afraid. Afraid? I couldn't imagine Dante afraid of anything. Of losing someone he cares about. It's happened before. Her eyes grew distant. His mother, his sister, people he couldn't protect. It haunts him still. Before I could ask what she meant, she was gone. I ate the pasta mechanically, tasting nothing. Dante had a sister, had a mother he'd lost. There were pieces of him I didn't know, stories that had shaped the dangerous man who'd decided I was worth protecting. worth claiming. The door opened near midnight. I'd fallen asleep in the chair, the book I'd been trying to read slipping from my hands. Dante stood in the doorway, and something about him was different. Harder, more dangerous than I'd seen him yet. There was blood on his knuckles. I sat up slowly, my heart kicking against my ribs. What happened? The Constantines sent someone to negotiate. His voice was flat, empty. They wanted to discuss terms. And I sent him back with a message. He moved into the room, and I saw the exhaustion in every line of his body, the weight of whatever he'd done pressing down on him. They have 24 hours to produce the men who threatened you, or I start taking apart their organization piece by piece until there's nothing left. Dante, don't. He held up a hand, stopping me. Don't tell me I'm being excessive. Don't tell me there's another way. I've spent all day listening to people tell me how to handle this, what the smart play is, what the profitable play is, and I don't care. He laughed, but it was bitter. I should care. I've built everything on being smart, being strategic, never letting emotion cloud judgment. And then you... He stopped, jaw clenching. You've made me reckless. I stood, approaching him carefully, like he was something wild that might bolt or attack. Let me see your hands. They're fine. Let me see them anyway. For a moment I thought he'd refuse. Then, slowly, he extended his hands. The knuckles were split, bruising already forming. Not just from one punch, from many. Did you kill him? I had to ask. Had to know. The negotiator? No. Dante watched as I examined his hands, his expression unreadable. But I made sure he understood exactly what will happen if they don't comply. Sometimes words aren't enough. Sometimes you need to make people feel it. I should have been horrified. Should have pulled away from this man who'd just admitted to using violence as communication. Instead, I found myself leading him to the chair, pushing him down into it, going to the small bar in the corner where I'd seen a first aid kit earlier. You don't have to do this, he said quietly as I knelt in front of him, opening the kit. I'm a nurse. It's what I do. I cleaned the first split knuckle, and he didn't flinch. Besides, you've spent all day protecting me. Let me do this one small thing for you. His free hand came up, fingers threading through my hair with a gentleness that contradicted the violence on his knuckles. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Fear. Revulsion. For you to look at me the way everyone else does, like I'm a monster wearing a man's face. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But you don't look at me like that. Maybe I should. I moved to his other hand, carefully cleaning each split. Maybe I'm the one being reckless now. Are you afraid of me, Lena? I considered the question, really considered it. Was I afraid of Dante Salvatore? The mafia boss who commanded armies and set fires and broke men's hands to make a point? Maybe, probably. But sitting here in the quiet darkness, his hand gentle in my hair, his eyes searching mine like I held answers to questions he'd forgotten how to ask? Not as much as I should be, I admitted. His breath caught. That's what scares me most. The fact that you should run from me, and you're not. Where would I go? I finished bandaging his hands, but I didn't move away. You said it yourself, they know where I live, where I work, who I love. Running doesn't keep me safe. It just makes me an easier target. So you're staying because it's logical. Strategic. I'm staying because... I looked up, met his eyes fully. Because when you told me you couldn't lose me, I realized I didn't want you to. The words hung between us. More intimate than any touch. More dangerous than any confession. Dante's hand tightened in my hair, and I saw the war happening behind his eyes. Want versus control. Desire versus the knowledge that touching me would only make this worse. You don't know what you're saying, he said roughly. Don't I? I rose on my knees, bringing us eye to eye. I've spent 4 days in your world, Dante. I've seen what you are, what you're capable of. And I'm still here, still choosing to stay. That has to mean something. It means you're traumatized. Stockholm Syndrome. Adrenaline making you feel things that aren't real. I kissed him. It was reckless and stupid and probably the worst decision I'd ever made, but I couldn't stand another second of him trying to convince me I didn't know my own mind. My lips met his, and for one frozen moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe. Then his control shattered. His bandaged hands cupped my face and he kissed me back with a hunger that stole my breath. It wasn't gentle, wasn't sweet. It was consuming, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of me before I disappeared. He pulled me up into his lap, and I went willingly, my fingers tangling in his hair as his mouth moved against mine. Lena. He breathed against my lips. Warning and prayer all at once. If we do this, if I touch you, there's no going back. I won't be able to let you go. Then, don't. I kissed him again, softer this time. Don't let me go. His forehead pressed against mine, his breathing ragged. You'll regret this. When the danger passes, when you can think clearly, you'll realize you never wanted this. Never wanted me. Stop telling me what I want. I pulled back enough to see his face, to make sure he understood. I'm not some delicate thing that needs protecting from itself. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. And yes, maybe it's crazy, and maybe I'll regret it tomorrow. But right now, in this moment, I'm exactly where I want to be. Something in his expression cracked, the last of his resistance crumbling. You're going to destroy me, he whispered. You know that? Good. I traced his jaw, felt the muscle jump under my fingers. Maybe we'll destroy each other. He kissed me again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. His hands slid down my sides, mapped my body like he was learning every curve, every response. I'd been kissed before, I wasn't naive, but never like this. Never like I was oxygen and he was drowning. A sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. Boss, Antonio's voice, urgent. They're here. The Constantins. All of them. Dante's hands stilled on my waist. His eyes met mine, and I saw everything shift. The man I'd been kissing disappeared, replaced by the cold strategist who commanded empires. How many? His voice was steady, controlled, like the past 5 minutes hadn't happened. 30 vehicles, maybe 200 men. They're at the gates requesting an audience. Requesting. Dante's smile was sharp. How polite of them. He stood, lifting me with him, then gently setting me on my feet. His thumb brushed my swollen lips. Stay here. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Dante, please, Lena. I need to know you're safe while I handle this. Can you give me that? I wanted to argue, to demand I be part of whatever was about to happen. But I saw the fear beneath his control, the genuine terror that something would happen to me. Okay, I whispered. But you come back to me. Promise. He kissed me once more, quick and fierce. I promise. Then he was gone, Antonio at his side, and I was alone with my racing heart and the taste of him still on my lips. Outside, I heard engines, voices, the careful choreography of dangerous men meeting on neutral ground, and I knew that whatever happened in the next hour would change everything. I lasted exactly 7 minutes before I broke my promise. 7 minutes of pacing the study, listening to the muffled sounds of engines and voices filtering through the walls. 7 minutes of imagining every worst-case scenario gunfire, Dante bleeding out in the driveway, the Constantins breaking through and finding me defenseless. 7 minutes before I realized that hiding while Dante faced 200 men wasn't keeping me safe. It was just keeping me ignorant. I moved quietly down the hallway, following the sound of voices. The house was nearly empty. All of Dante's men were outside, a show of force to match the Constantines. Only Sophia remained, and she was nowhere to be seen. The front entrance had massive windows flanking the door. I pressed myself against the wall beside one, carefully peering out into the floodlit courtyard. What I saw stole my breath. It looked like a scene from a movie. 2 armies facing each other across the circular driveway. Dante's men in black, disciplined and still, weapons visible but not raised, and the Constantins in various dark suits, spreading out in a loose semicircle, their body language aggressive, threatening. But it was the men in the center that held my attention. Dante stood with Antonio and 4 others I recognized from the meeting. He looked calm, almost bored, his bandaged hands clasped behind his back. Facing him was an older man, 60s maybe, silver hair slicked back, expensive suit that couldn't hide the predator beneath. Victor Constantine. Had to be. I cracked the window open just enough to hear. Reasonable men, Victor was saying, his accent thick. We can resolve this without further bloodshed. Reasonable. Dante's voice was cold silk. You send men to shoot at a civilian wedding, and you want to discuss being reasonable? A misunderstanding. Overzealous operatives acting without authorization. Victor spread his hands. I've brought them here as you requested, to face whatever justice you deem appropriate. He gestured, and 3 men were pushed forward from the Constantine ranks. They looked terrified, and I recognized one of them, the photographer from the wedding, the one who'd smiled at me from the garden. My stomach turned. Justice, Dante repeated. He moved closer to the three men, circling them like a shark. You send these men to terrorize an innocent woman, to shoot at her, to threaten her family, and now you offer them to me like it absolves you of responsibility. They acted alone. Don't. The single word cracked like a whip. Don't insult me by pretending you weren't behind every move they made. You gave the order to surveil her. You gave the order to compile the dossier. You gave the order to escalate at the wedding. Dante stopped in front of Victor. You thought she was leverage. A weakness you could exploit. Was I wrong? Victor smiled, and it was ugly. You've started a war over a woman you met 4 days ago. Seems like a weakness to me. The tension ratcheted so high I could feel it through the glass. Dante's men shifted, hands moving toward weapons. The Constantins responded in kind. 200 fingers on 200 triggers, waiting for the signal. Let me tell you about weakness, Dante said quietly. Weakness is thinking you can threaten what's mine and walk away. Weakness is coming to my home with 200 men and believing that shows strength instead of desperation. He leaned in close to Victor. Weakness is not understanding that I've already won. Victor's smile faltered. You're outnumbered. Am I? Dante pulled out his phone, swiped once, and turned the screen toward Victor. That's your eldest son's house in Moscow. Or it was, 20 minutes ago. Hard to tell with all the flames. The color drained from Victor's face. Your shipping facility in Odessa? Currently being raided by officials who received a very detailed anonymous tip about your smuggling operations. Another swipe. Your casino in Prague? Closed by the police. Something about tax evasion and money laundering. They have quite the paper trail. You bastard. Your daughter's wedding is next month in St. Petersburg. Dante's voice dropped to something lethal. Beautiful venue. Would be a shame if something happened to interrupt it. If someone showed up with guns, made the guests afraid, made your family understand what it feels like to have their celebration turned into a nightmare. You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I? Dante pocketed his phone. You touched someone under my protection. You brought violence to a civilian event. You threatened her mother. Each word was punctuated, precise. So yes, Victor, I would dare. And if you think I'm bluffing, ask yourself why I'm standing here so calmly while you have 200 men at my gates. The silence was suffocating. I could see Victor calculating, trying to figure out what he'd missed, what trap Dante had laid that he couldn't see. I have men on every ridge surrounding this property, Dante continued conversationally. Snipers with orders to fire the moment anyone reaches for a weapon. I have explosives under every vehicle in your convoy, remote detonated, naturally. And I have enough dirt on your organization to send every single one of your captains to prison for life. He smiled, and it was terrifying. So you see, Victor, you're not here to negotiate. You're here to surrender. I won't, you will. Dante's voice cut through the protest. You will give me the names of everyone involved in the surveillance of Lena Morgan. You will compensate me for the inconvenience, and you will personally guarantee that no Constantine will ever look in her direction again. And if I refuse? Then 200 men die tonight, including you. Your son's house keeps burning, your empire crumbles, and your daughter's wedding becomes a funeral. Dante stepped back. Your choice, but make it quickly. My patience has limits. I watched Victor's face work through rage, fear, calculation. Beside him, younger men, his sons, maybe looked ready to fight. But Victor held up a hand, stopping them. What compensation? His voice was defeated. 10 million. Wired to an account I'll provide. Plus you withdraw from the waterfront territories you've been contesting. That's everything we've worked for. That's the price of breathing. Dante's eyes were merciless. Take the deal, Victor, because if you don't, I promise you I will make you watch everyone you love suffer before I let you die. The words should have horrified me, should have made me sick. This was what Dante really was, not the man who'd kissed me with desperate hunger, but the monster who would threaten children, burn homes, destroy lives without hesitation. But all I could think was that he was doing this for me, to keep me safe, to make sure no one ever threatened me again. What did that make me? That I wasn't running from this room screaming. Done. Victor's voice was hollow. We have a deal. Good. Dante gestured, and Marco appeared from the shadows, producing a tablet. Sign here. And Victor, if you even think about reneging, remember I know where your daughter lives. I know her schedule. I know everything. He leaned in one last time. And next time, I won't be this merciful. Victor signed with shaking hands. The 3 men who'd been pushed forward were grabbed by Dante's guards, their fate sealed. "Take them to the warehouse," Dante ordered. "Make sure they understand the consequences of their actions before you let them go." Let them go. Relief and horror warred in my chest. He wasn't going to kill them. But whatever happened in that warehouse would be enough to make them wish he had. The Constantins began withdrawing, vehicle by vehicle, until only Victor remained. He looked older than he had when he'd arrived, diminished. "You've made a powerful enemy today, Salvatore," he said quietly. "No." Dante's smile was cold. "Today I reminded you why people fear my name. There's a difference." Victor left, and the courtyard slowly emptied. Dante's men began securing the perimeter, checking vehicles, unwinding from the tension. I saw Antonio clap Dante on the shoulder, saw the exhaustion in both their faces. Then Dante looked up, directly at the window where I stood. Even from this distance, I felt the impact of his gaze. Knew he'd known I was watching the entire time, that maybe he'd even been performing for me as much as for Victor, showing me what he was capable of, giving me one last chance to choose differently. I stepped away from the window and moved to the front door. By the time I opened it, Dante was climbing the steps. He stopped when he saw me, something vulnerable flashing across his face. "You were supposed to stay inside," he said softly. "I know. You saw everything." "Yes." He searched my face, looking for disgust, fear, rejection. "And?" I closed the distance between us, ignoring the guards who were carefully not looking at us, ignoring Antonio's knowing smile, ignoring everything except the man in front of me who'd just threatened to destroy an empire because someone had dared to frighten me. "And I'm still here," I whispered. His hands came up, cupping my face with his bandaged fingers. "You should be running." "I know." I covered his hands with mine. "But I'm not." "Lena," his voice cracked. "What you saw tonight, that's who I am. That's what I do. I hurt people. I destroy lives. I make monsters kneel because I'm the bigger monster." "I know," I said again. "Because I did. I'd seen it with my own eyes, heard it in his voice. The capacity for violence. The willingness to go further than anyone else. And it should terrify me. But it doesn't?" I stood on my toes, bringing my lips close to his ear. "It does, but not as much as the thought of you not being there to do it." He shuddered against me, his arms coming around my waist, pulling me close. "You're going to ruin me." He breathed into my hair. "Completely ruin me." "Good," I whispered back. "Then we'll be even." Dante didn't let go of me. Even as his men filtered past us into the house, even as Antonio called out updates about perimeter security and wire transfers, Dante held me like I was the only solid thing in a world that had gone liquid and uncertain. "Boss, we should debrief," Antonio started. "Tomorrow." Dante's voice was rough. "Handle the cleanup. Make sure the Constantine's convoy is clear of the property." "And Antonio?" "Yeah, boss. No one disturbs us tonight. I don't care if the world is ending." Antonio's expression softened with something like understanding. "You got it. Night, Miss Morgan." "Night," I managed, my voice muffled against Dante's chest. Then we were alone in the grand foyer, the sounds of activity fading as the house settled around us. Dante pulled back just enough to look at me, his dark eyes searching mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly, "and I need you to answer honestly." "Okay." "Are you staying because you're afraid to leave? Because you think if you try to walk away, I'll stop you?" His hands framed my face with devastating gentleness. "Because, Lena, if that's what this is, if you're only here because you feel trapped, I'll have Marco drive you anywhere you want to go. Tonight. No questions asked." My heart twisted at the vulnerability in his voice. This man who'd just faced down 200 armed men without flinching was terrified of my answer. "You really think that's why I'm here?" I asked softly. "After everything I just saw, everything you just did, you think I'm too afraid to tell you no? I think you're traumatized and exhausted and you've been through more in 4 days than most people experience in a lifetime." His thumb traced my lower lip. "I think your judgment might be compromised. And I think if I take advantage of that, if I keep you here when you're not thinking clearly, I'll never forgive myself." "Dante, I mean it." His voice was fierce. "You deserve better than this, better than me. You deserve someone who doesn't have blood on his hands, who doesn't solve problems with violence, who can give you a normal life." He leaned his forehead against mine. You deserve someone good. And what if I don't want good? The words came out before I could stop them, raw and honest. What if I want you? His breath hitched. You don't know what you're saying. Stop. I pulled back, forcing him to meet my eyes. Stop telling me what I feel. Stop trying to protect me from my own choices. I'm a 30-year-old woman, not a child. I know what I saw tonight. I know what you are. I took his bandaged hands in mine. And I'm choosing this anyway. Why? The question was agonized. Why would you choose this? Choose me? Because I stopped, trying to find words for something I barely understood myself. Because when you look at me, I feel seen. Really seen. In a way I haven't felt in years. Because you flew across the state when I was in danger. Because you threatened to destroy an empire to keep me safe. Because when you kiss me, I feel like I'm finally awake, after spending my whole life half asleep. Lena, I'm not done. My grip tightened on his hands. You want to know the truth? Yes, you terrify me. Yes. I should probably run as far and fast as I can. But I spent the last 3 years putting everyone else first, working double shifts, taking care of patients, being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who never asks for anything. My voice cracked. And then you crashed into my life and made me feel something, made me want something. And maybe it's selfish, maybe it's stupid, but I don't want to go back to being numb. Even if staying means danger, even if it means choosing the monster. The silence stretched between us, heavy and fragile. Then Dante's control finally, completely shattered. He kissed me like he was drowning and I was air, like I was the answer to questions he'd been asking his entire life. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back as he deepened the kiss, and I melted into him, giving him everything. You're not choosing a monster, he breathed against my lips between kisses. You're choosing a man who will burn the world to keep you safe, who will kill anyone who tries to hurt you, who will worship you like the miracle you are, Dante. His name was a plea, a prayer. Let me take care of you. He lifted me effortlessly, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me toward the stairs. Let me show you what it means to be mine. I thought I wasn't yours, I gasped, as his mouth found my throat, teeth grazing sensitive skin. You are now. He kicked open a door, his bedroom, I realized distantly. Massive and masculine. All dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. The moment you told Victor Constantine's army that you were staying, you became mine. And I'm never letting you go. He laid me on the bed with a reverence that contradicted the hunger in his eyes. For a moment, he just looked at me, drinking in every detail like he was memorizing this moment. Last chance, he said quietly. After this, there's no going back. You'll be marked as mine, protected by my name, but also targeted by my enemies. Your normal life ends tonight. I reached up, pulling him down to me. I don't want normal. I want you. Something in his expression broke. You have me, he whispered, his voice raw with emotion. You've had me since the moment you spilled coffee on my suit and looked up at me with those defiant eyes. I was lost then. I'm lost now. Then be lost with me. He kissed me again, softer this time but no less intense. His hands mapped my body with careful precision, like he was learning every curve, every response. When he pulled back to remove his shirt, I saw the scars that marked his torso, evidence of a violent life, of battles fought and survived. Still want this? He asked, watching me take in the physical proof of what he was. I sat up, tracing one particularly nasty scar across his ribs. Tell me how you got this one. Knife fight. I was 19. Stupid and reckless and trying to prove I was strong enough to lead. His hand covered mine. The man who gave it to me is dead now. And this one? I touched another, higher, near his shoulder. Gunshot. 3 years ago. Rival family thought they could take me out at a charity gala. His smile was grim. They were wrong. I leaned forward, pressing my lips to the scar, felt him shudder beneath my touch. And this one? Lena. My name was a warning. If you keep doing that, I won't be able to go slow. Then don't go slow. I looked up at him through my lashes. I'm not fragile. I won't break. No. He cupped my face, his expression fierce. You won't break. But I will if I hurt you, so let me do this right. His thumb brushed my lips. Let me savor you. And he did. He worshipped every inch of me with hands and mouth and words whispered in Italian that I didn't understand but felt in my bones. He was patient and tender and completely focused on my pleasure, like nothing else in the world existed except this moment, this connection. When we finally came together, it felt like something fundamental shifting into place, like two broken pieces finding each other and discovering they fit perfectly. "Mine," he breathed against my ear as we moved together. "You're mine now, Lena. Say it." "Yours," I gasped, my fingers digging into his shoulders. "I'm yours. And I'm yours." He kissed me deeply, swallowing my moan. "For as long as you'll have me. For as long as I'm breathing." Later, wrapped in his arms with the moonlight spilling across the bed, I traced patterns on his chest and tried to process what I'd just done. I'd given myself to a man who commanded an empire built on violence, who'd threatened children to make a point, who'd promised to destroy anyone who tried to hurt me. I should have felt guilt, should have felt like I'd betrayed every principle I'd ever held. Instead, I felt safe, cherished, like I'd finally found the place I was meant to be. "What are you thinking?" Dante's voice was drowsy, content. "That I'm probably insane," he chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. "Probably. But you're my kind of insane." His arms tightened around me. "Stay with me. Not just tonight. Stay. In this house, this world, in my life." He turned to face me, and in the moonlight, he looked younger, less dangerous, almost vulnerable. "I know I'm asking for everything. Your safety, your peace, your normal life. But I'm offering everything in return. My protection, my resources, my devotion." He kissed me softly. "My heart, for whatever that's worth coming from a man like me. It's worth everything," I whispered. "So you'll stay?" I thought about Seattle, my apartment, my job at the hospital, the life I'd built that was stable and safe and so unbearably lonely I'd stopped noticing. Then I thought about Dante, about waking up to this view every morning, about being cherished by a man who would move heaven and earth to keep me safe, about finally feeling alive. "I'll stay," I said. "For now. Until I figure out what this is. What we are. We're inevitable," he murmured, already drifting toward sleep. "We were always going to end up here, Lena. From the moment we collided." I watched him sleep, this dangerous, complicated man who'd turned my world upside down. Outside, his guards patrolled. His empire continued its dark work. His enemies plotted revenge. But here, in this moment, with his arms around me and his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt home. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the scent of coffee. For a disoriented moment, I didn't know where I was. Then memory flooded back. Dante's hands on my skin, his voice in my ear, the way he'd looked at me like I was something precious and terrifying. The way I'd surrendered completely. The bed beside me was empty but still warm. I sat up, pulling the sheet around myself, and found a note on the pillow in elegant handwriting. "Balcony. Join me when you're ready." His shirt from last night was draped over a chair. I pulled it on, the fabric soft and expensive, smelling like cedar and smoke. Like him, in the ensuite bathroom, all marble and chrome, I found toiletries that were obviously new, purchased for me, toothbrush still in packaging, face wash in the brand I used, hairbrush, even my preferred shampoo. The attention to detail should have been romantic. Instead, it reminded me how thoroughly he'd studied me, how much he'd learned before I'd even known his name. I found him on the balcony, leaning against the railing with a coffee cup in hand, wearing only pajama pants. The morning light loved him, gilding the muscles of his back, illuminating the scars that told stories I was only beginning to understand. He looked peaceful, almost normal. Then he turned, and I saw his phone in his other hand, the tension in his jaw, the darkness in his eyes that hadn't been there last night. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. "Good morning to you too." He set down the phone, his expression softening slightly as he took me in. "You're wearing my shirt. You left it for me." "I did." He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "You look beautiful. Did you sleep well?" "Dante." I pulled back just enough to see his face. "What happened?" He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on my hip. "The Constantins made their first payment. The money cleared an hour ago." "That's good, right?" "It should be. Except, He stopped, jaw clenching. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you from the beginning. My stomach dropped. What? He led me to the wrought iron table where breakfast was laid out: fruit, pastries, coffee. But neither of us sat. Instead, Dante leaned against the railing, putting distance between us, preparing for impact. Do you remember when I said I didn't intend for any of this to happen? He asked quietly. That I didn't plan for the Constantines to target you? Yes, that was true. But it wasn't the whole truth. He met my eyes, and I saw guilt there. Raw and aching. I knew who you were before the airport, Lena, before you spilled coffee on me. The world tilted. What? 3 weeks ago, I was at Seattle General, visiting one of my men who'd been injured in a warehouse accident. Legitimate business, nothing illegal. You were his nurse. He ran a hand through his hair. You came into the room to check his vitals, and you smiled at me, asked if I needed anything, offered to get me coffee from the cafeteria. I searched my memory frantically. 3 weeks ago, the graveyard shift, a patient with a broken leg and internal injuries. I'd met so many people, so many faces blurring together in the exhaustion of back-to-back shifts. I don't remember, I whispered. I know. Why would you? I was just another visitor in a suit, another face in the endless rotation of your shifts. His smile was bitter. But I remembered you. The way you touched my man's shoulder when you adjusted his IV, so gentle. The way you explained his medications in terms he could understand. The way you treated him like he mattered, even though he was just another patient to you. Dante. I looked you up that night, had my people compile a basic profile, nothing invasive, just the public information. Where you worked, where you lived, that you were flying to San Francisco for your friend's wedding. He straightened, facing me fully. And I went to the airport that morning knowing you'd be there, knowing which flight you'd be on, knowing which gate. You planned it. The words felt like broken glass in my throat. The coffee, the collision, all of it. Not the collision. That really was an accident. You were running late, distracted, and we crashed into each other. His eyes pleaded for understanding. But yes, I was there, hoping to see you, to talk to you, to find out if the connection I'd felt in that hospital room was real, or just my imagination. I backed away from him, my mind reeling. You stalked me. You researched me, followed me, engineered a meeting. Yes, he didn't try to sugarcoat it. I did, and I know how that sounds. I know what it makes me. A creep, a stalker, someone who violates people's privacy and lies about it. My voice was rising, anger and betrayal burning through the shock. You let me think it was fate, random chance. You let me believe that I was worth the risk? His voice was quiet. That what we had was real, not manufactured. Lena, it is real. My actions at the airport might have been calculated, but everything after that, every word, every touch, every promise, that was genuine. How am I supposed to believe anything you say now? Tears burned my eyes. You've been lying to me from the beginning. I haven't lied. I've withheld information, and I'm sorry for that. He took a step toward me, but I told you the truth about everything else, about the danger, about what I am, about how I feel about you. Which is what? Obsession? Some twisted need to own something you decided you wanted? I laughed, but it came out broken. God, I'm so stupid. I actually thought. I stopped, pressing my hands to my face. I thought you saw me, that I was special, but I was just a target, wasn't I? Something you decided to acquire. No. His hands gripped my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. You were never a target. You were a woman who showed kindness to one of my men when she didn't have to, who looked exhausted but still smiled, who treated a criminal like he was human. His voice cracked, and I couldn't stop thinking about you, couldn't stop wondering what it would be like to be on the receiving end of that kindness. So you stalked me. So I made a mistake. He released me, stepping back. I went to the airport hoping for 5 minutes of conversation, a chance to introduce myself properly, maybe get your number. I never intended for it to go further than that. But then I called you. But then you called me. And I realized the Constantines had already identified you. That my moment of weakness giving you my card, letting you see me want something, had put you in danger. His expression was raw. Everything after that was real, Lena. My need to protect you. My willingness to go to war. The way I feel when you look at me. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to so badly. But trust, once broken, doesn't heal cleanly. I need time, I said quietly. I need to think. Of course. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I knew telling you would probably end this. End us. But I couldn't. He stopped, jaw working. I couldn't build something real with you on a foundation of lies, even if the truth meant losing you. He left me alone on the balcony with cold coffee and a view that suddenly felt like a cage. I should have left then. Should have demanded Marco drive me to the airport, gotten on a plane, and never looked back. The man I'd given myself to last night had manipulated me from the beginning, had violated my privacy, researched me without consent, engineered our meeting. But even as anger and betrayal churned in my gut, I couldn't forget the rest of it. The way he'd protected me, the way he'd held me like I was precious. The vulnerability in his eyes when he'd asked me to stay. The fact that he'd just confessed something that could drive me away, knowing it might, because he valued honesty over keeping me ignorant. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessa. Lena, where are you? You disappeared from my wedding and haven't answered in days. I'm worried. Please call me. I stared at the message, at the normal life it represented. Jessa would be horrified if she knew where I was, what I'd done, who I'd given myself to. But she'd also never felt what I'd felt last night, never experienced the intensity of being completely seen, completely wanted, completely claimed. Sophia appeared in the doorway with fresh coffee. He told you, didn't he? About the hospital. You knew? I guessed. I've never seen him like that, distracted, almost hopeful. It scared me, honestly. She set down the coffee. For what it's worth, dear, he really does care about you, more than is probably wise for a man in his position. He stalked me, Sophia. That's not caring. That's obsession. Maybe. She settled into the chair across from me. Or maybe it's what happens when a man who's forgotten how to feel anything suddenly feels everything. She paused. Did he tell you about his sister? No. You mentioned her before, but... Isabella. She died 6 years ago. Car accident, they said. But it wasn't an accident. Sophia's eyes were distant, pained. A rival family targeted her because of Dante, ran her off the road. She was 23, an artist, so full of life. She looked at me. He blamed himself, said if he hadn't been who he was, she'd still be alive. So he stopped caring about anything except the business, stopped letting anyone close, stopped being anything except the cold, calculating man everyone expected. My throat tightened. Until you showed him kindness when you had no reason to. Until you looked at him like he was human. Sophia reached across the table, squeezing my hand. I'm not excusing what he did, but I'm explaining it. Sometimes broken people do broken things when they're trying to feel whole again. She left, and I was alone with my coffee and my thoughts and the weight of decisions I wasn't qualified to make. Inside, I heard Dante on the phone. His voice was cold, controlled the mafia boss, not the man who'd whispered my name like a prayer last night. I had a choice to make, walk away from this dangerous, complicated man who'd lied by omission, or stay and see if what we'd built on a flawed foundation could still become something real. My phone buzzed again. This time, an unknown number. He's not what you think he is. Ask him about the ledger. Ask him what he really wants from you. A friend. My blood ran cold. Someone else was watching. Someone else was playing games. And I was caught in the middle of something I was only beginning to understand.